Hey guys, welcome back to our channel Glitched Velocity. I'm your host Wazahat, and today in this video I'm gonna share some cool tips and tricks for CopperCube 3D game engine. So without further ado, let's get started. Do you know that you can convert any static object into a water node? And let me show you how. So I'm gonna create a water surface with tile count 1, width of 1 and length of 1. And then I'm gonna import ancient statue here. And suppose we want to convert this ancient statue into a water node. So what we have to do is we have to merge this water node with this ancient statue. And in order to do that, we have to select our water node, then go to polygon editing tools, then merge selected mesh into another mesh. And then we have to select our ancient statue and hit OK. As soon as I hit OK, you will notice that our ancient statue has been now converted into a water node. And let me just go closer. We can disable the underwater color here and disable the water flow direction so that it will become static instead of animated water. And then you will notice it looks really cool. It looks crystallized. So you can use this trick or to create crystallized objects or ice cubes or glaciers or whatever you want. And yeah, it does reflect reflections, but those reflections are not accurate. So don't go with the reflections, but you can use this to create cool crystal objects or crystallized object. Yeah, that's it. Let me just delete it. As we already know that we can apply scene post effects to the whole scene, but do you know that you can apply those effects to specific object as well? And let me just show you how. So all you have to do is go to scenes tab here, then select scene post effects, then you will be provided with this new window with all the post effects like bloom, black and white, inverted, blur, colorize, vignette, and all those effects. All you have to do is you have to select any of the post effects, for example, black and white or bloom, for example, bloom, and then disable it. Then you have to select your object on which you want to apply the post effects, then go to view, then edit and delete properties, and then go to materials tab. Then you have to select this drop down of material type here. Then simply go to the last option here, which is vertex alpha to texture blend. And as soon as you select this option, you will notice that it won't reflect the selected texture here. Instead, it reflects 25 as a numeric value here, and the drop down option has been now gone. So what we can do here is we can specify our own custom numeric value, which is our material type. So for example, I can use 28 in order to make this cube mesh black and white, which is our post effect black and white. And in order to prove that our cube mesh is the only object which is affected by the post effect, we can insert animated man here, and you will notice that it is very colorful while the cube mesh is in grayscale. Then we can change the material type to something like 29, and it is now inverted. We can change it to 30, and you will notice that it is now red, or the colorized post effect has been applied to this. And what if I want to change the color, or what if I want to change the post effects parameters or values? So we can go back to our post effects, and as we know, we have applied the colorized material here. So we have to select this colorize option here. Then we can change the red color to whatever color you want. For example, green, and then simply disable it. And you will notice that the cube mesh has now green post effect, and all the objects or all the scene remains unaffected. We can use invert here, black and white, vignette also. So let me just close it and change the material type to 31. And you will notice it has black boundaries at the edges of the cube mesh or the texture, because we have vignette effect applied here, and we can decrease the vignette radius. So it is 0.4 right now. We can use 0.2, and you'll notice that it is now applied to the cube mesh as well. So you can change it back to 0.4 or 0.3 So yeah, that's it. That's how you can apply post effects to specific object, but you will not be able to apply bloom or blur effect as you go higher in this numeric value. If you change the type, material type to 32, then you will notice it will change the object to black and some white dots here, white texture here. That's because bloom is the combination of multiple materials. So it is a combination of 32, 33, 34, or maybe 35. So yeah, that's how it is used. And if I change it to 27 here, you'll notice it is a strange material here. I don't know if it is blur or what, but we have this strange material which looks much more similar like the sphere map or reflective material, fake reflective material. But no, it's not a fake reflective material or sphere map. And we don't actually know what this material type is, but I think it has some use with blur or bloom effect. So we can change it back to 20, back to 0 to make it solid. Then the drop down will appear back again. So you can change whatever texture you want. Yeah. And let me just delete it. And now let me just delete that as well. Suppose we have some animated meshes in our scene and they appear to be inverted, or the left hand appear to be right hand and right hand appear to be left hand. And as you have might already know or have seen, many CopperCube forum members or community members recommend you to scale down this x-axis as negative. So if you put negative here, then you will see that it has been changed to left hand instead of the right hand. And if I change it back, you'll notice it has been changed back to right hand. But I don't think it is the recommended way to do this, because CopperCube already provides a rotation correction option. So you can correct the rotation of imported animated mesh without putting a negative sign here. In order to do that, you have to go to animations attributes here, then go to edit. Let me just close this edit properties. So while in animation editor and inside this animation editor viewport, you have to do right click and then simply select this correct rotation here. And you will notice that there are three different options. You can change the rotation on x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. And let me just do it by changing the x-axis with 90. And you will notice that it is now rotated as the left hand without changing the scale or without changing the scale. So yeah, without putting a negative sign here. And then we can fix the textures by changing them to double-sided material. And I think it is the recommended way to change the rotation of your animated character instead of putting a negative sign here, because sometimes when you script, then you need to get abstract value of these scale or something like that. And if you are dealing with negative signs, then it might get confusing if you forget to put negative or something like that in your scripts or all those stuff. Then it will become more complicated and it will. So it is better to use this option here of correcting rotation. So correct rotation from here instead of putting negative scale on this x-axis here. So that's it. And now let me just create a terrain here and close this animation editor. And as you might already aware that you are not able to move this terrain on any of the axes, and you will never be able to rotate it with the default terrain or without any extra effort or without any tips or tricks. So let me just give you a tip and show you the trick how to do that, or how to move the terrain and how to scale it or rotate it. And all you have to do is you have to make this terrain a children of any other node. And you can't do that simply by dragging it in the scene graph explorer like this, like this. You can't make it children of any other node by simply dragging it in the scene graph explorer. So in order to do that, you have to use scripting. And I have added this cube mesh because I'm going to make this terrain children of this cube mesh, or maybe I should use an empty here by creating a sphere with 0 radius and 0 poly count. And I'm going to rename it to the terrain. So we have name of our actual terrain as terrain1, and we have name of our empty as terrain. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click view here and then scripting window. And then I'm not going to write any script right now because I have already written it. And if I write the script right now, then it will make the video much longer, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to copy paste this script, which I have already written in my scripting window here, and I will execute it. And as soon as I execute the script, you will notice that the terrain, actual terrain, is now a children of my empty node. So in my script, I have this terrain as my empty node and terrain1 as the original terrain node. And then I have set them children and parent of each other, and then updated the windows of editor. Let me just close this. And now we can simply select this terrain and move it wherever we want without any difficulty. And we can also rotate it however, whatever manner we want, in whatever manner we want. We can scale it also, scale it up, scale it down, and do whatever we want. So yeah, that's it. That's how you can move or rotate or scale a terrain object, which is by default not possible in CopperCube game engine. And you can also, so what if you want to use multiple direction light? Many will suggest you to create a prefab of directional light and then import them in your 3D scene. But what you can do is you can simply create a point light, then go to view, then irradiate and irradiate properties, then go to attributes, and then come down here and change the light type from point to directional light. And you will have 2 directional light in your 3D scene. You can also convert it to a spotlight, which many of you might not be aware about. So you can use a spotlight in CopperCube. So yeah, that's another feature. And then you might have noticed when you downloaded some 3D models online. So they comes without any texture, but when you look at these images online, then you notice that there are colors. They are colorful. For example, we have red color or brown color for the sand part, then blue color for the water part, and then green for grassland, then gray for the castle or the walls, or like that. We have green for the tree, brown for the trunk. But when you import those objects, those 3D objects in CopperCube, they don't show any color because they are vertex colored, and CopperCube only supports a few formats that can support vertex color, lighting, or multiple objects in CopperCube. And the best option to use, best format to use is .dae format. So if you import .dae objects in CopperCube, then they will appear with vertex color and lighting data automatically, and you can also import multiple objects at once. So I have some DAE objects in my desktop here. So I'm going to import, for example, this tree forest here. Right now it is single object, but if your 3D object has multiple models or multiple parts, then you can import them as well. And you can notice that it has been imported with the color data and there is no texture applied to them. So let me just import some more. For example, flag team yellow or flag team red. And you'll notice that we have this red colored object here. So all the DAE objects will appear with the vertex lighting and the vertex color. So you don't have to worry about why the color is not appearing, or if you don't have DAE objects or DAE format for your 3D models, you can easily convert them with the Blender. Let me just open Blender. Wait. Blender 3D. And I have this K-Kit mini game models here, and let me just extract them to my desktop. So we have models in FBX format as well as OBJ or GLTF format. So in Blender, let me just delete it, go to File, Import, and then I'm gonna import OBJ format, which is Wavefront OBJ. And then go to Desktop where I have extracted models, then OBJ, and we can select whatever model we want. For example, tree forest or tree desert. I'm going to select tree desert and import it. As you can see, it has been imported with the vertex color data. Then we can simply export it as collada.default.dae. So I'm going to export it on my desktop as desert and export it. Then I'm gonna go back to my CopperCube editor, select mesh, go to my desktop and select desert.dae, which we have just exported, and click open. And you will notice that it has been imported with green vertex color. But what if I import the same object in OBJ format? So if I go here and select tree desert, then you will notice that it is completely white. There is no vertex color for the OBJ format. And let me just import one more model here, which is tree green or tree forest. I think the tree is up there. Or we can import whatever we want, but let's just select this target OBJ, import it, as you can see. And let me just move it here. And then I'm going to export it again with multiple objects as DAE. And I'm going to rename it to target. And I'm going to export it on my desktop, export as Collada, and then import it in my CopperCube editor. And you will notice that it has been imported with multiple objects. So you don't have to combine or join your 3D object when you are using .dae format, and they will import it with .vertex color and lighting data. So you don't have to worry about the color data or textures or whatever when you download 3D models like this from online websites like 𝙎𝙪𝙧𝙘𝙝 or any other 3D downloading website, 3D models website. So yeah, that's it. You can import all kind of DAE models. Then there comes a simple tip when for the scripters or for professional or advanced user who loves to write their custom behaviors or actions or extensions. So there is this tip that when you are creating a behavior and there are times when you want to pause or stop the execution of your behavior. So in order to do that, what you can do is, let me just open a example script. For example, this behavior cheat sheet. And suppose if we want to stop the execution of behavior or we want to pause the behavior, what we can do is we can redefine the onAnimate prototype function of this behavior. As you can see, this behavior has no code for prototype onAnimate function. So we are going to take a look at another behavior. For example, this behavior 2D AI. And as you can see, this has some code or some script that needs to be executed on animate function prototype. So what we can do is we can redefine it whenever we want in our code. For example, we can simply copy it here and then we can paste it wherever we want to stop the execution. So for example, if animation is equal to punch or kick, we want to stop the execution of behavior, or we want to stop the behavior from executing, or we want to pause the behavior. What we can do is we can simply redefine it here as an empty prototype function. Or we can, if we want to alter something or if we want to change the behavior to work in a different manner, we can execute something in here. For example, if I want to change my variable animation to something like die or maybe death, then it will set the variable animation to death, but won't execute the whole animation or whole behavior. It will only set a new variable animation, which is death. So yeah, that's how you can stop the execution of behavior. Sometimes you want to change or alter the code or something like that, then you can copy the whole code of this prototype onAnimate function and redefine it with altered value whenever you want in your behavior. You can do it on key event. For example, I have this key events in my cheat sheet behavior prototype on key event. If key is equal to 67, I can redefine the onAnimate behavior with some value or something like that. So you can redefine whenever you want. So yeah, that's it. That's how you can stop the execution of behavior, or you can change or pause the behavior or alter the value of the behavior. And there is one more thing which I want to tell you is that when you are loading the textures externally by using the command ccb load texture, it will try to find or search or load the file from external directory. So suppose if you don't want your textures to be available to the end client, or if you are using the code inside your behavior or extension, then what you can do is to prevent the textures from loading from external directories, you can embed those textures inside your exe file or your game. And in order to do that, all you have to do is you need to create an empty. For example, I'm going to create a sphere with 0 radius and 0 poly count, and I'm going to add all the external textures to my empty node. So suppose this is frame 1, which is located in my desktop, then another folder named desktop, then dd3 new, then Bandai logo, and I want to load this external frame or external texture by using the command ccb load texture, which will search for external files or load textures externally. So I'm going to apply this to my empty node, or go to view, irradiate edit properties. You can supply up to 4 textures to an empty node. And suppose if the amount of textures is really high, then you can create endless amount of empty nodes. You can clone it and then supply another textures in these load these 4 slots. So you have 8 texture, then you can clone 2 empty nodes and supply all the textures in there. And then if, as you can see, I have no empty node, and if I add a behavior here on my cube mesh, behavior triggered by events, when a key is pressed, do something. And if I change the key type to F, and then if I execute an action or execute script here, JavaScript here, I'm not going to write the whole script because I have already prepared it. So if I copy and paste it in my scripting window here, and hit OK. And if I test the application now, if I press Ctrl F10, then it will load the texture externally. So if I press F, then you can see it loaded the texture from the directory I have mentioned in my script, which is C users, my name, then desktop, then DD3 new, then Bandai logo, then frame1.png. And now let's see what happens if I delete the texture from the directory. So if I go to DD3 new, where it is here, and then Bandai logo, and what if I rename this texture? So or delete this or move it somewhere else. So let me just move it here. And now if I test the application, if I press F, then you will notice that the texture is not loading, or the texture could not be loaded for the cube mesh. But what happens if I create an empty here? For example, create a sphere with 0 radius, 0 poly count. And if I apply the texture, which has been already in my texture panel, to my sphere mesh here, and then if I test the application now by pressing Ctrl F10, and if I press F, then you will notice while I have no actual texture in my directory, Bandai logo here, frame1, there is no frame1 texture here, but it is still loading the texture for the cube mesh, and that texture is embedded to this sphere mesh. So you can embed textures in your empty nodes. You can embed up to 4 textures for one empty node, and you can embed an infinite amount of textures. But that's probably gonna increase your exe or game size. So yeah, that's another trick that you can use to eliminate the external textures, or you can eliminate the uses of external texture so that your end client or the end player will not be able to see the texture or alter them or modify them with their custom textures or something like that. And then we can do something with the collision as well. So what I'm going to show you is I'm first going to create a terrain here. Let's just create a normal terrain, the default terrain. And then we can create an animated man and apply collide when moved behavior. So let me just change it to something like 10, -10, sorry. And you can see that our animated man has been completely covered or with this ellipsoid. And what I'm gonna tell you right now is that you can use multiple collide when moved behavior to create a proper or better collision response for your objects. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna decrease the size here. For example, 6. Wait, sorry. I don't know what's happening. So, and then I can move it a little bit down, changing it to 8 or maybe 3. And then I'm going to duplicate this behavior, and then I'm going to move it up something like 12, or maybe more than 12, 15. Wait, sorry. We have these 2 collision object or the 2 collide when moved behavior attached to it. But now you might find that if I test the application, our character is moving, or wiggling or jiggling automatically. So in order to fix that, what you have to do is you need to turn off the gravity for the above collide when moved behavior, which is at the top. So you need to turn off affected by gravity for all the collide when moved behavior except one, which is at the bottom part. So if I test the application now, then you will notice that our collision is working, collide when moved behavior is working with multiple collide when moved behavior attached to the animated mesh. It is probably not good for 3D object, but when you are creating 2D games or 2D texture, when you are using 2D sprites, then sometimes you need to perfect the collision. Or for example, if you have a triangle, then you need to you can't do the circular or ellipsoid collision. So what you can do is you can create a collision ellipsoid and align it according to your, for example, let me just simply do a plane mesh here and attach a collide when moved behavior and delete this animated mesh. Let me just change it to 1 on the Y and increase the X to something like 10 and Z to something like 10 and make it 0. Right now you can see it is circular, and if I change it to something like 20 and 20, then you will notice that it is going out of bound. And if I collide this plane mesh with anything in my surrounding, then it will collide in a circular fashion. But what I can do is I can decrease the amount here and set it to 15, set it to 15, and then I can clone it or duplicate the behavior and change this collide when moved behavior to a smaller one, like 5, and then I can move it to the corner either there. So I can move it to something like 10 on the x-axis, then 10 on the z-axis. So it is now here, and I can decrease it a little bit more to something like 3, and then move it a bit here. It can be tedious, but you get the idea how to make it work. So the collision will be there and there and there. So all these extra bounds will not collide with the surrounding. So yeah, if you are using 2D objects which has irregular shapes or different shapes that needs special collision, then you can do that with this method or with this trick of using multiple collide when moved behavior, disabling collide affected by gravity for all the collide when moved behavior except one single entity, which is always at the bottom of your object. So I think that's all for today's video. Let me see if I have missing something or some tips and tricks that I might want to share with you guys. I have written all those tips and tricks in my notebook so that I can remember when I'm creating these videos for you. So yeah, there is one more thing that I need to show you, and which is when we create prefabs. So let me just delete all these quickly, and I'm going to show you when you export or create prefabs out of your 3D scene. For example, I have this Taken 7 menu prefab, and what I'm going to show you is you will notice that this plane mesh has this position 807.273.273, something like that. And if I delete or press Ctrl Z, and if I move around in my scene here, and if I at the Tekken 7 menu again, then you will notice the position has been changed. So whenever I import a prefab in my scene, then their position will be out of nowhere. I don't know where they are going to be positioned in my 3D scene. So in order to prevent them to position randomly in the scene, what you can do is when exporting or while exporting your prefabs, you can do something. You can create a folder node and move your 3D object or plane mesh to those folder nodes. For example, as you can see, we have some folders here already, and we have game options, sound options, plane meshes in this folder. So if you notice the position here, which is 56 on the x-axis, 56.18845, and if I delete or undo my changes, and if I move anywhere, you can see I'm moving. You can see my key presses here. So you can see I'm holding up, so which means I'm moving. Or now if I import the Tekken 7 menu and check this option here, game option, then you will notice it still has 56.18845 as position on the x-axis. So whenever you use your objects inside the folder options while creating prefabs, their position, rotation, and scale is not going to change when you import them in your 3D scene. So it is a good idea to always put your 3D objects or everything inside folder nodes. So you need to arrange or maintain the scene graph explorer, or it is a good practice to sort the scene graph explorer in folders or something like that. So whenever you export your scene as CopperCube prefab and then you import it in CopperCube back again, so the position will be fixed or attributes will be fixed. So you don't have to mess with aligning them again and again in your game. So that's another tip. Let me just check one more time in my notebook if I'm missing something. So water nodes done, rotation fixes done, per object post fx done, 2D room used for file tile maps done, use of exclusive and fixed size for window. So there is one more tip that I want to give you right now is whenever you publish your game, always use window size as exclusive fixed size. Don't use dynamic resizable because it will give you crisp and clear and sharp graphics and brilliant graphics when you use exclusive fixed size as your window mode. But whenever you use dynamic resizable, then sometimes it will downscale or it will upscale your resolution, that they look blurry or not that sharp or crisp or clear. So I always recommend to use exclusive fixed size as your window mode for your games. Whenever you publish your games, always use exclusive fixed size and define the resolution here. And you can also use desktop resolution for full screen so that the end user don't have to fiddle with the resolution. Whatever resolution of the end user's monitor screen is, the game will automatically adjust according to that. So yeah, that's all. And I think that's pretty much of it. And this video is going to be a long video. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to check one more time in my notebook if I'm missing something. So use of folders when creating prefabs done, use of DA models done, use of empty nodes to hold the texture done, multiple collide when moved behavior done, parenting terrain to something to make it move, scale, or rotate done. And when writing behaviors or actions, you can, alter or stop the execution of them. And there are some more tips and tricks, but this video is then going to be way more longer, so I'm gonna conclude it right now, right here. So yeah, that's it. That's for the today's video. I hope you like the video. If you found this video interesting, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. and press the bell icon. And you will find the link for all the scripts that has been used in this tutorial or tips and tricks video in the description down below. You can also join my Discord server. The link will be in the description down below. So bye bye, peace out, have a nice day.